Welcome to Eco Talk, the latest podcast from the Carbon Zero Group. Okay, on today's podcast, we're going to talk road traders. It's a massive, massive issue here in the solar industry and in the renewable energy industry as a whole. So I'm here with Neil, our sales director. Neil's been in the industry an awful long time, just like me. We've got the grey hair to tell the stories. But we're talking rogue traders here on the Eco Talk podcast here today. So Neil, have you got any examples of some rogue traders you've had?
Yeah,
stories.
I mean, there's one that happened very recently actually. Went to see a lady and she'd paid her deposit to a company and never got a solar or a battery.
Wow,
It's quite a specific scenario. It was off grid, so no grid connection whatsoever. Out in the sort of middle of Wales, and just living away from the grid in general. They'd had a company come round, started at a price which was already cheap. Had the lady sign an agreement in one company name, pay a £6,000 deposit to another company.
No way.
I mean, under MCS guidelines, 10% max, right?
Absolutely, so,
yeah. 6,000 deposit. They took her money. The first company folded. The second company folded, and she's seen not sight nor sound of her money since. And I think she's got a bit of an uphill battle to get that money back. I know she's not the only one because I took a look at the contract that she'd signed, and she was promised for £8,000 a solution that, number one, wouldn't work in an off-grid scenario at all. It was completely incompatible. The panels specified aren't made in the market anymore.
Gosh.
Haven't been for a long time. They were LG panels. They're not around. At the time they were very, very, expensive.
Yeah,
panels.
absolutely. Yeah.
You're not getting 5 or 6 kilowatts worth of LG with a 10 kilowatt battery to work off grid for £8,000. So they were clearly out to rob her. Clearly, there was an agenda inside. There was an agenda in mind. And unfortunately, the poor lady, she got the wool pulled over her eyes, which happens all too often. And she's got no solar. She's giving the money out. She's got no solar. The solar could never have been done in that price. The kit would have cost more than what they were selling the product for. And she's fallen victim. So
it's something we've seen. We've both been in the industry sort of 15 years, and it's something. It's a story we've heard so many times, though, isn't it? In a similar situation, it's horrific, but it continues. But sometimes, and here's an interesting question. Does the consumer have more? Should they be doing more checks themselves? And do you find that some consumers are just far too trusting?
There's a mix. I think people need to do their due diligence when they're buying
Yeah,
tech.
definitely.
This industry, since its inception, since when those original feed-in tariffs came in, and then there's hundreds of solar companies forming every single week. It was an absolute boom industry, and everybody was jumping on the bandwagon. Very quick, everybody was a solar professional.
Yeah.
The market was 10 minutes old, and everybody was a solar professional. There was all sorts of poor advice and poor guidance, and an awful lot of get the installs done quick, move on. And as we all know, when those tariffs changed back in the day, the installers gradually fell off. So as fast as there was, a couple hundred companies forming a week, at one point, and once we passed sort of like feed-in tariff drop-offs, we started to lose, volumes of installers from
Absolutely,
the market.
Yeah.
Some of those ones that were in for a quick buck, and over time, the ones that were in for a quick buck, I guess the industry, the sale of the product in the industry became a little bit more of a professional approach, and a little bit tougher, really, from a company standpoint. And they fell out the market. And then since the power price increase in 2021 and that started hitting the news, of course, the solar industry becomes a boom industry again. And every Tom, Dick and Harry wants to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
People who were fitting light switches and wiring a plug last week have suddenly become a solar professional again, because this is the industry. And when it gets a little bit tough, they won't be in the industry, and they'll be a window fitter or whatever whatever's the hot product at the time, whatever it is. But what that breeds is people into the industry for a quick buck. They're in to take people's money, get the system installed, by hook or by crook. No concern or thought for, the customer's needs, the property's needs, actually doing the job properly. And then they're going to dive back out the market, along with the customer's support, along with the go-to platform for, after-sale care and stuff.
Yeah, it's the warranty, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Who services that now?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something we'll go into. But I remember back in 2021, and I did that news piece for ITV Wales and BBC. And do you remember how many leads we had overnight? It just went absolutely crazy, didn't it?
Yeah.
Overnight.
Yeah.
And
start watching the emails coming in.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy time, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the amount of business it generated. But yeah, I mean, what we're also seeing a lot of at the moment is new installers coming. Like you've mentioned, we've got a lot of new people coming in, and I think there's people new coming into the market someone who have a genuine interest in the industry and they actually want to be a good trader.
Yes. There
is those people out there, but there's an awful lot of newbies who were in, like you say, for the smash and grab.
Yeah.
And from a consumer, they need to do their due diligence and background checks. And, like I was talking to somebody yesterday who they'd appointed a very large contractor, large company, to do a project. But they'd actually only done one solar installation in the last 12 months. And it doesn't inspire you with confidence when you've got, and you're paying a premium for a large company to do it, but it's not great. I mean, but I do think there's newbies out there who genuinely want to do a good job, but they haven't got the knowledge and maybe the training as yet.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, those people end up falling into that cowboy sort of rogue installer because they don't know what they're doing.
Yep. They're new to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been so many instances. I saw an instant the other day on LinkedIn. There was a contractor who had been employed by a housing association in Scotland, and they were fitting something like a 50 kilowatt.
Yep.
No scaffolding.
Yep.
No nothing, and it was a 3-story building. And
the actual, just from a aesthetic standpoint, the design.
It was awful, wasn't it?
Atrocious.
Absolutely awful looking thing.
Panels everywhere.
It's like they start off wrong, but we'll carry on. We've already got this far. We might as well just carry on.
Yeah.
It was awful, but I'm not sure who's more at fault: the housing association for not doing their due diligence and checks, or the company that was doing the work.
Who signed that off?
Absolutely, who signed it off. It's so there's some. What you'd think something like a housing association wouldn't allow that sort of thing to even happen just from a health and safety side.
Well, you look at the checks that we go through with whoever we're doing business with.
Absolutely.
It's thorough from both ends of the pond usually. They're checking us out. They're making sure our accreditations are in place. We're checking them out, making sure we're trying to advise and guide the job right through so that everything is done correctly in the first place. So that stuff doesn't even come into question. So it looked like none of that had taken place on that particular project. Equally in this industry, there's still a big attitude towards a lot of care and attention's got to be given to this, because there's a lot of stuff happening in this industry whereby someone wants some solar panels and someone will come and put some solar panels on for you. Of course they will. And you've got a big roof, great, so we can put X number of panels on your roof, Mr. Customer. This also falls into that kind of experience, knowledge, professionalism within this industry. And I think this is something where a new installer might not know this stuff. And this is where people have got to be careful, and it comes down to that sort of due diligence from the customer standpoint. Okay, so we can fit 5,000 panels on our roof, or we can fit 500 panels on a roof. Do we need 500 panels? what does our power demand look like? There's no thought goes into an awful lot of that. And one thing I do come up against a lot is customers being blinded by science.
Yeah.
They've got X number of kilowatt hours consumption per annum. We've got a solar array, it's going to generate X number of kilowatt hours. That's not, you and I both know that's not how this works.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And people will come, and the companies will come, and whether they're new or whether they know exactly what they're doing, and they just want to get the deal over the line to make their profit, and off they pop. But the simple fact of the matter is that correct system design is key to this. Due diligence and care of attention and due care and attention to the system design is imperative.
Yeah.
I guarantee that Scottish job that you were talking about, there was no system design involved in that process, and it's just another part of that diligence and being very careful who you engaged when you're not involved in small capex amounts.
No.
It's big money, whichever way you look at it. Big 5, 6, 7-figure sums in cases. If that's done wrong, then there's a building down the road that we've come across with a huge multi-story building and north-facing panels that point directly at the multi-story building. I mean, if ever there was a poor system design,
police headquarters. Police headquarters, yeah.
Yeah.
It's I think it's a very interesting one, system design, and I think that's something we could talk an awful lot in depth about.
Yeah.
And just to elaborate for our viewers on what you're talking about is we've won quite a few jobs recently, haven't we, where we've actually quoted a smaller system than our competitors have.
Yeah.
And a lot of people might be thinking out there, why are we doing that? Well, we're an honest, legitimate business in the end, and we want to put the right system for the right people. But, someone's got a demand of 100,000 kilowatt hours a year.
Yeah.
We are, these companies are coming in, we're going to fit you with solar that's going to generate 100,000 kilowatt hours. So, Mr. Customer, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of your power bill. Because these magic solar panels, they're going to generate all the power you need, and you're not going to have any bills. So this solar system's just looks amazing, but it doesn't work like that.
On paper it looks great.
On paper it looks great, but solar doesn't work like that, as we know. No. And unfortunately, consumers don't understand this bit. So what we do, and I'll let you explain this, do you want to just explain to the viewers how we map and how we design a system to suit customer needs?
Yeah, of course. And this is relevant across the board. It's understanding the power profile of the building. In a large commercial environment, you've got half-hourly data, which is meter reference points for the power consumption every half hour. So you add those together, you got your kilowatt hour per hour usage. It's really simple. You look at that data, you can see exactly what the power demand at any given moment in the day is. Sizing a solar array to meet that demand so that you've got a high proportion of power consumption. It's never a perfect science. There's always going to be some energy that goes out to grid and things. We factor that into the calculations, and when we account for those kind of minimal payments from export. But you can get it pretty close to perfect. I mean, in an ideal world, your best return on investment with any kind of solar investment is sizing a system for as near as, damn it, 100% consumption model, because then you're getting the best value out of your system. Similarly, in a residential environment, someone may have I see an awful lot, 8 to 10,000 kilowatt hour usage profiles in a residential environment. Understanding what's in that home, using that power, is key to the whole piece. What's using it? Is it an electric vehicle? That's becoming more and more common. Chances are they're going to be charged on the night rates at sort of 9.5p or whatever, with some of the sort of evening tariffs and things. Is there an air source heat pump? Okay, so where's that power demand going to be? That's probably going to be very high demand in the wintertime.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when we need heat, we don't have a great deal of sunshine, and when we've got a load of sunshine, we don't generally need a lot of heat. So they're the opposite end of the spectrum. So it's understanding those points and principles of how power is being consumed within a property to size the array. So how much power are we actually looking to get control of? We're looking to get control of what's happening with the power between 1st of March and 31st of October for the most part. That's going to be the vast majority of our solar generation. So we kind of want to map that out, really. And then we can employ some other clever stuff. So things like battery storage for capturing overproduction, balancing systems, but then also the ability to charge on evening rates and things, with specific tariffs over the year and in the winter times, to balance off some of that winter demand, and by a wholly encompassing approach and a multifaceted approach, we can get control of an awful lot of the power demand. People have hot tubs and things, so what can we do with the hot tubs? So we can shift sort of filtration cycles into daytime use and stuff to utilize solar power from generated energy. What can we do with an EV? We don't really want to be charging an EV during the day, but we can if we've got an electric vehicle charger, something like a Zappi, which monitors level of PV production on the roof, monitors level of consumption in the property, and feeds unused power or power that was about to escape to the grid through the EV into the car. So you're capturing as much efficient solar power as you possibly can into that vehicle, and then you can you finish the top up of the car on the night rates. And by that multifaceted approach, you get a much stronger level of control over the usage of power in the property, and more often than not, you can get very, very, very close to actually in control of the power.
Definitely. I think the key is we're designing systems to cover that base load, aren't we? We're looking at that base load power. How many units of electricity you're using per day, and designing a system that will hopefully eradicate as much as that baseline demand as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than just looking at collective, you're using all this power per year, it just doesn't work. No. And because we've won jobs off the back of redesigning systems and showing clients actually this is how it should be designed.
Yeah, exactly.
And we see it's an awful lot, don't we, with some local and national competitors who we go up against sometimes, and I'm not sure if it's the way the company works or whether it's just individual salespeople getting it wrong, and it's a lack of training,
lack of education,
potentially,
lack of knowledge.
Yeah,
sometimes a lack of professionalism.
Yeah, 100%, because it's obviously within our interest as a solar company to sell some of as big a system as possible because we make more money.
Of course it is.
But that's not the sort of company we are we, Neil? We're here to do good business with other honest local business professionals in the end. We want to thank everyone for joining us, listening and watching in. Tune in, like and follow for more content, and we'll see you for the next episode of Eco Talk.